Committee. The first item on the agenda would be apologies for absence. Have we got any apologies?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's an apology from Councillor Jan Curtis.
Thank you very much. Moving on then to disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest. For myself, I'm a member of the Swansea Pension Fund. Could we go around the table? Thank you.
Hello, I need to declare that myself and my wife are members of the pension fund.
Councillor Will Thomas, member of the fund, thanks.
I have to declare nothing. That's right.
Jeff Tong.
Phil? Oh. Phil, online?
Yeah, my brother's a member of the pension fund, Chair.
Thank you. Patience?
Yes. Member of the pension fund, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. Officers now, please.
I'm a member of the pension fund.
Same, Chairman.
I'm a member of the pension fund.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Also a member of the pension fund.
Thank you all. Moving on to the minutes of the last meeting and to approve and sign them. Are we happy? Shall I read them through? That's probably it there. So you've got the minutes there. I've got the minutes.
Page one.
Oh, right. Okay. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Are we all happy that that's a fair record of what transpired? Yes, Phil? Phil Downing?
Oh, I'm agreeing, Chair.
I thought you were indicating that you want to speak. Thank you. Can we all indicate that we're happy with that? Thank you very much. Moving on to the main business then, and on to section 4, which is page 5, which is the breaches report, and I believe that Jeff will take this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The committee are used to receiving this report on a regular basis. It's the report which identifies to those charged with governance breaches during the preceding period as required by the pensions regulator. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice an additional appendix on page 33 of the report, whereby we've augmented the usual breaches, the statutory breaches that we report to you, with some additional reporting, which is required by the Scheme Advisory Board to be included in the annual report. So we just thought it would be good practice to start reporting those KPIs to you on a regular basis as well. Admittedly, they're a work in progress. The KPIs that you can see on page 33 are largely driven and derived from the system, the Hayward system. Obviously, that's the pensions administration system used by over 95% of the LGPS, and it's basically the engine room of the LGPS and where we derive all our data in respect of members' benefits and how we perform in dealing with and transacting with our members. So for the first time, you can see some of the metrics that the system can measure and that we can report to you. You know, as you can see, most of them are pretty satisfactory. However, there are some whereby the figures aren't as we would want them. However, they do tend to be rarer occurrences. For example, transfers out, for example, you know, they don't happen regularly. but you know the PI in relation to them is still pretty unsatisfactory in respect of in absolute terms. However, noting that there's only 8 of them that happened during the period. On an absolute basis, that's not something to worry about. If there are any KPIs that the committee want to do a deep dive on and get some additional information from pensions admin manager at the next meeting, we can get them in and ask them to talk to you about it and explain what some of these more esoteric, for example, pension sharing order. That's when the admin section have to deal with a legal order derived from a judge resulting from a divorce. So in a divorce settlement, your ex-spouse may have rights to pension rights, or legal rights, sorry, to your pension in the future, and that's how we deal that with request and get that through the system and log it on the system. Satisfactory, the one that we had in the period that was dealt within the customer target time, dealt within the KPI time, and completed within the legally required response time. There's only one, but there's 100% compliance with that one. But that's few and far between. But those are the sorts of metrics that we're measuring on now. It's more comprehensive in terms of the scope of the data that we can slice and dice because of the improvements to the Hayward system. But at the mercy of the committee, as to what you would like more information on, and whether you want a deeper dive on some of those issues. Going back to the normal regular breaches that you're used to receiving, and that's on page 28 to 29, the most recent ones. Again, they're the usual late contributions that you're used to hearing about, and you can see on page 32 the late contributions in respect of the town council. No GDPR breaches this period. And then nothing further to add, really, Chairman. As I say, invite additional questions about any of the additional KPIs that we're now reporting on, and I'll apologise that I may not be able to give you a response now, but subject to your request, I can get the pensions admin manager along at the next meeting to give you a bit more detail.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions to Jeff?
Thank you, Chair. Jeff, just looking at one that stands out to me is the one where we're only 45% confirmation that transfer in has been completed. What do you think are the causes of us not being able to transfer in within the given time, please?
When it depends where you're transferring in from, Councillor Rogers. It's confirmation basically. In the main, sometimes it's a single transfer. Sometimes a member has multiple transfers. They want to transfer in from their current employer, but they also want to bring in a private pension that they've got. So it's juggling lots of different pieces of information that you require from the new prospective member, and it's just tends to be an admin headache to get the response from the new member to send over all the documentation that you require. Oh, not that. Have you got the latest valuation of it? And then obviously, if it's a cash transfer in, we have to get that actuary valued to see how much it buys in the LGPS, and then sometimes they change their mind. Oh, okay, I'd rather leave it where it is rather than transferring it in. So it's not a clean business as usual uniform process, because that process would be totally different for you because of your previous arrangements than it would for Councillor Locke, for example, who has different previous employment arrangements or private pension arrangements. So I would suggest that's the reason. But upon your request, I'll ask the team, why that PI is the way it is, and I'll get back to you. But those are some of the reasons why I would surmise they're like that.
Lovely. Thank you, Jeff. Very clear. Thank you.
Will, can I bring you?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a comment, really. I noticed there's no, as you mentioned, data breaches or GDPR stuff, which I know we used to get the odd one. So it's obviously well done to the team because they've obviously been doing something right or changed the practices. So I'm sure, it's quite hard to keep track of all that stuff, make sure things don't go to the wrong people and things. So yeah, well done. And what have you changed really is the question that's, been successful.
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. The previous breach, if committee recall, was on an email chain whereby the right at the bottom of the email chain, the name and address of the previous email correspondent was left on and forwarded on, and those details were disclosed inadvertently. Embarrassing, and personal oversight by the pensions officer. Basically, a stiff talking to the team about the importance of GDPR and personal data, and having that drummed home really to all the officers and who work in the section about the importance of GDPR. That's and training. We, to your point, Councillor Thomas, we have had a couple of new starters during the period, and I do know that Claire and Nick and the rest of the guys do undertake quite a comprehensive training program with new starters. Hence, the sort of difficulty we have in fulfilling posts, really, because they have to be suitable candidates really to go through it, because it's a complex space dealing with pension administration. You're dealing with three separate schemes, and we'll talk about that later on when we're talking about the resourcing paper. But it's a complex role and job. You're dealing with not a single scheme, basically, because everyone thinks of the LGPS as a homogeneous scheme, it's a single scheme, it's the LGPS. But ostensibly, legally, and in administrative terms, you're dealing with three separate schemes, three separate calculations, the impact of which subsequently you've got to run through the McLeod impact, the rule of 85. There's all these considerations to take through. That all the best will in the world, technology does help, but technology doesn't do everything. It does require human intervention, human common sense to be applied over the top of it.
Thank you, Jen. Any more questions? I'd just like to say that Will has picked up what I on page 17 about the GDPR, and it is a little concerning because in this world of moving on technically and electronically, it has to be tightened up to the best degree that we can. So thank you for your comments, and I've taken them on board, and thank you for your question, Will. Okay, thank you. That report was for information only.
Yep.
So moving on to item 5 on the agenda, and this is City and County Pension Fund Business Plan 25-26. So Jeff is going to take this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. On an annual basis, the pension fund just identifies, very, very high level work plan to identify the key tasks to be undertaken by both sides of the business, both on the admin side and the investment side of the business. Purposely, you can see there's very light reference within that business plan to the impact of the Fit for the Future consultation, which is still ongoing, because obviously if that consultation goes a certain way, that will unlock a whole raft of business that will need to be attended to during the next 12 months. Purposely, that's not addressed here overtly. Front and centre for 25-26 will be the work involving the triennial valuation. Obviously, the committee are aware every 3 years we're legally required to have a valuation of the fund in terms of have we got enough money to pay all the pension promises that we've made. And the actuary goes away and does hard sums and comes back and tells us, you know, what our funding level is, what our employers can be expected to pay in the next 3 years, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, there are some new obligations now about making commentary on climate change risk and additional reporting in respect of that. You know, the committee are used to receiving that report. You received it in 2022 as a result of the previous valuation. Obviously, 2022 was the first time the fund achieved full funding status. Obviously, to Councillor Thomas's personal experience, probably the last 3 years has been very positive in investment returns. And 2025 does look like it's going to be very positive news again on an actuarial basis for the fund and the results that we can expect. I know there's been a lot of publicity and noise re other funds who are very well funded, you know, going to zero contribution rates and taking contribution holidays, etc., and slashing the contribution rates to probably imprudent levels. That's not something that, you know, this pension fund, I would recommend that this pension fund even thinks about. I would suggest and highly recommend during the valuation process that you know, we take the actuarial advice, we take the advice from our investment consultants about what a prudent contribution rate looks like, and ensure that you know, we have stability in those contribution rates going forward, and ensure the long-term stability for the fund, because it's been hard achieved, that full funding status, and it's this status we you know, we don't want to lose overnight by being imprudent and setting imprudently low contribution rates. However, you know, the fund is in surplus, and it's quite right and proper that employers expect, you know, to share in some of those surpluses and expect, you know, perhaps some contribution savings in their budgets going forward, and within my auspices as a Section 151 representing the pension fund, because Ben Smith, the Director of Finance of the council, sits on the other side for the employer to ensure conflicts of conflicts of interest management purposes. I sitting for the pension fund will strongly advocate for prudent levels of the contribution rates. However, Ben, for example, who will represent Swansea Council as the employer, obviously, will want as low a contribution rate as he can negotiate for them as an employer, and similarly, our employers in Neath Port Talbot, respectively. That's obviously. I just wanted to use the business plan to highlight as we come to the end of this financial year. You know, that's the big event on the horizon, but also lots of other tasks and actions that we need to complete during the year. You know, the readiness for pension dashboard is picking up now. Obviously, the staging date for LGPS is October 26, but I would suggest that most of the meaningful work will be done in the next 12 months in getting readiness for that, and sensibly, I would comment, the 8 Welsh pension funds are working together on a consistent dashboard approach. We all use the same system. We're all going to have the same, you know, back end of the system, and have the dashboard plugging into that back end. You know, the 8 front ends of the dashboard may look different and have, different corporate identities attached to them. But ostensibly, the work undertaken is being shared by the 8 Welsh pension funds to do that, and we'll update you on where we are in respect of that. Also, you'll see in the pack is a budget for the fund compiled by Karen on page 54, and as you can see, right at the bottom there, WPP Project Snowdon. You may be asking, what is Project Snowdon? That's the name we've given to the WPP Fit for the Future consultation work and mobilization. There's another report later on in the pack today where I'll go into more detail about what the business case submission is about and looks like, and you'll be able to ask more detailed questions about the WPP proposal there. But the rest of the budget you're used to seeing. Where was the and as you can see, understandably, there's a jump up in actuarial fees for 25-26 because it's actuarial year. On the preceding pages, then you've got the asset allocation and the risk register. The whole function of the pension fund investment monitoring process is all about managing risk. So largely the investment risk is covered off in one line there, really. But the other risks highlighted are mainly in respect of the operation of the business, having appropriate trained and qualified staff, what all the system goes down, failure to protect, personal data, and the mitigating controls that we've got in place to mitigate those. Nothing further to add, really, Chairman. The recommendations, as I say, on page 34 of your pack.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions? Will, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, you mentioned other funds taking breaks from payments potentially. Just wondered what sort of percentage they're funded by compared to us, because obviously, as you said, we're fully funded, but I know some funds have way over like 150, 200%, that sort of thing. I mean, it would be, in my own sort of conservative opinion, it would be once you get to the sort of 200% mark, that's when you would start to reduce, because things can change quickly, can't they? But that's just a number pulled out of the sky. But that's the sort of my personal opinion, which would be when we'd want to reduce payments.
You sure you don't work for Westminster Council, Councillor Dance? Because those are exactly the figures that they are 200% fully funded,
right?
And that is the trigger point that they've used to adopt 0%, only in this year, to go to a 0 contribution rate. Obviously, the 200% is dependent on the assumptions and lots discount rates, etc. So their 200% may not translate to our 114% because the assumptions are different. And as I've previously communicated to you, our assumptions are pretty prudent. There's a lot of safety built into those assumptions that we're adopting. But the Westminster Council have adopted a 0% contribution rate against actuarial advice. They were currently 15%, I think. Employees' contributions. The actuary would have been comfortable going to 7.5. However, the committee approved going to 0.
Does it also, at that point, give you the option, once you're that fully funded, to invest more locally? Because, as you argue, it's a slightly potentially higher risk putting money more locally. But does that give you a bit more flexibility to invest more money locally, do you think?
That's definitely an argument. I mean, lots of people say that being fully funded like that gives you the freedom to take more investment risk, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Because, you know, if it goes wrong or, you know, you lose a bit of money, you know, you just go down from 200% funded to 170% funded, but you're still fully funded. You can still meet your pension out. But no, there is that argument. And I'll invite our advisor in to comment about this because I think the fund that we're referencing is advised by Hymans. I think and his poor actuary colleague did take a lot of flack in the press about, you know, but I fully support his position. I fully support the.
But before Hyman's come in, I got one further question that I'm sure you want to take and think. With the United States government just introducing the strategic Bitcoin reserve, how long do you think it is? And do you think that we'll be in a position to invest in Bitcoin, which I think we should? Thank you.
As you know, Councillor Thomas, I'm not suitably qualified to answer that question. You know far more about Bitcoin investing than I would even attempt to try and give you an answer to that question. Can we just watch this space?
I mean, I can provide a very brief comment on the Bitcoin question, which I think is that I don't think it would be appropriate for this fund to have a direct investment into Bitcoin, but were managers in a diversified portfolio to decide to allocate to Bitcoin, I think that would be, you know, within the context of those managers doing within the guidelines that they might be set, and perhaps as we move forward into the new LGPS world with the pooling, something that could be talked to WPP about whether some of their underlying managers might want to have that authority. On the Westminster piece, yes, Hymans are the actuary to that fund. I think our view is that LGPS is a very long-term open scheme, and to put employer contributions to zero at a particular funding levels, I think to us just sets a precedent that we wouldn't want to set for employers to think that zero contributions are possible in those sorts of circumstances, and that there might be a future expectation that that could continue. And I think the Westminster situation, and I'm not involved, so this is not a Hyman's comment, it's more from what I've read in the press and what I've sort of gleaned internally. But I think the Westminster example, they've only said that it would be for 1 year rather than an ongoing. So they are trying to be very careful for it not to set a precedent. Let's see how that pans out as the years go forward. I think there are also some unique. I'm sure I read that they're setting up a fund for they're going to use some of those savings from the contributions to set up a Grenfell Tower support fund. So there's probably some extenuating circumstances with that council and the desires of what they're trying to achieve locally.
Thank you. I just want to come in just a moment. But I'm sure our actuaries will advise a buffer percentage on any overfunding that's achieved at the next triennial valuation. Do you think, Jeff?
Most definitely, Chairman. You know, that is their job. You know, that to balance their main objective is to achieve stability of contribution rates for employers, whilst also ensuring you know full funding, as full of funding as possible for the fund. So that's the balance they have to make. But just coming back to you know the Westminster example, I just remembered that obviously off the back of that, obviously that piece of work is intra valuation. It's actually now. So obviously the valuation happens at 31st of March 2025. Those contribution rates don't kick in until 1st of April 2026. However, the Westminster example is applicable from 1st of April 2025. So technically, it's an intra-year, you know, valuation adjustment, and it's still uncertain whether that is technically legal or not, because it's intra-valuation. So off the back of that, the government is panicking and has launched a consultation on intra-year valuations as we speak. So yeah, I'm pretty sure the Government Actuaries Department, MHCLG, Treasury are taking a dim view of that 0% contribution rate intra-valuation.
Well, hello, Jeff. Me again, Councillor Phil Rogers. I was watching First Minister's questions this week, and it appears that the Global Centre for Rail Excellence are looking for investors, a local area. Have we got any ideas about investing into GCRE, please?
I can do some research for you, Councillor Rogers. I'm totally unaware of that as an investment opportunity at this point in time. I don't know if our advisors are aware of it, but I can definitely find out and get back to you. Obviously, one of the key objectives for the WPP newly formed IMCO is to encourage and attract local investment of that sort. So if it's appropriate, if it makes a healthy return and achieves other objectives, I'm sure they'll consider it in due course.
Lovely, thanks, Jeff. Just making people aware. That's all. Thanks.
I believe there's a recommendation on this, Jeremy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chair. You see the recommendations on page 34, and it's recommended the Pension Fund Committee approve a note 1, the City and County Swansea Pension Fund Annual Business Plan 25-26, 2, the Risk Register 25-26, 3, the Asset Allocation, and 4, the Budget 2025-26. Can somebody please move? Okay, and a seconder. Okay, all in favour? Yeah, okay, that's that's unanimous, Chair. That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. Right, moving on then to item 6 on the agenda, which is trustee training. Jeff, is this you again? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As you know, you're the body charged with governance and the decision making in respect to the City and County Swansea Pension Fund. With that responsibility, with that job and role comes a lot of responsibility, and to ensure that you're appropriately trained and skilled up to make those decisions, you're required to be appropriately trained and have the appropriate resources at your disposal to be able for you to be able to make those decisions. To that end, we constantly send you on training courses and bombard you with information and request that you attend this, that, and the other. And that's a legal requirement, I'm afraid. Sorry, someone's phone going off anyway. Apologies. What this report sets out in a formal way is to gently remind you that it's your own personal responsibility as a member of this committee to ensure that you are appropriately trained and to try and attend any training that's identified for you or you're invited to attend as and when you can. I do understand you're all busy professional politicians and have full diaries, but as part of your role on this committee, you do have a legal obligation to ensure you are appropriately trained and educated for your role. The report goes on lots of background about the whys and wherefores of that obligation, and I know a number of years we asked Hymans to undertake a knowledge and skills assessment of the committee to identify areas where you would like more training and where perhaps there were weaknesses in your training. That was a number of years ago, and we're still slowly going through the areas that you identified. I mean, the most recent training that the committee had, and it was a great session organised by Andre. I think it's online. and was very engaging on all parties. Loads of discussion and contention and contrary views was on natural capital, and where we had Moneylife down and Stafford and Andre gave the pre-education piece. So we do recognise that the committee and the board, because we always have joint training with them, is well attended and committed to by members. Just a gentle reminder that you continue to do so. Obviously, there are formal events that are identified on page 60 that not only organised by third-party organisations, but the WPP, etc. That elected members can go to, and recommendations are that those are approved, and that recommendation, Chairman, is on page 55.
Thank you, Jeff. Just a quick comment from me. At that last training session that you mentioned that we went to was very interesting and very informative, and the time flew by because it was not like a training session that you talked at. It was very interactive, and we all had put our points across, and I quite enjoyed it. So thank you very much. So just a comment. Over to you, Jeremy. It's been okay.
You see the recommendations, page 55 is recommended the assessment and outline training plan in 3.7, 3.8 and 3.9 be approved, and further opportunities which are identified during the year be delegated to the Deputy Section 151 Officer for approval. Could somebody please move? Okay, and a seconder. Okay, all in favour? Yeah, on the line. There we are. That's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on then to the item 7 on the agenda, which is the Administrative Authority resourcing. Again, Jeff, it's over to you, I believe.
Thank you, Chairman. The main objective of this report, Chairman, is to ask for committee's approval for an additional FTE in respect of a senior technical officer in the admin section of the pensions team. Obviously, you're aware that largely the function of the pension fund is split into two halves. The asset side of the business, which is the bit which largely takes up most of your attention, is the management of the investment assets and how those are deployed. But also, people say it's the most important side of the business, is dealing with the liabilities, the members, and paying those benefits. And we've got a big team led by Claire Elliott and Nick Jenkins that does that sterling job, and they've identified a gap in that resourcing that we need to fill with a senior tech officer. You can see in comparison, well, to the points I made earlier on, the preamble to the report, the introduction and the first number of sections of the report identifies to you and reminds committee the sheer complexity of this scheme and the challenges that they face in administering that scheme. It's not a homogenous scheme. It's different for every individual depending on when you joined, your age, etc., your marital status, all the above. So it's not homogenous, and it is complex. And then subsequent legislation changes it. Subsequent judicial reviews, such as the McLeod, gender discrimination case, etc., all has an impact on how we have to legally administer the scheme. So that complexity is ongoing, and as I say, next on the horizon is adopting and implementing pensions dashboard next year, which presumably again will bring an additional degree of complexity to managing the scheme. As you can see, there's some comparators there with our on page 70 Admittedly, this was last done back in 2023, so I don't know how accurate these comparative FTs are. But as you can see, compared to membership numbers and FTE staffing numbers in the admin section, you know, we're pretty consistent and quite modest in terms of our staffing levels per member. So I have no issue in making the recommendation to committee in making this appointment. It's an important appointment because, as I say, it's a senior technical officer role. When I say technical, it means they have the technical responsibility for looking after the Hayward system, doing all the interfaces, managing how that interface works with our different employers. Because since 2018, we've adopted, you know, automatic interfacing with all our employers. Because not only do we have Neath Talbot and Swansea Council as employers, we have Trinity St David's University, we have Gower College, we have Celtic Leisure, all these employers. Historically, they would be manual feeds with all that data. However, we've adopted electronic automatic feeds now, and it would be the remit of the senior technical officer to manage and be responsible for all those interfaces. Happy to leave it there, Chairman. The recommendation, as I say, is on page 62. Thank you, Jeremy.
I just have one thing to say. I imagine that this appointment would have minimal impact on our finances of the fund.
Chairman, I knew you'd ask that question. I think I did the maths. It's like 0.00006% of the value of the fund. So, like, yeah, I mean, it's.
Thank you for confirming that.
Yeah.
Okay, over to you then, Jeremy.
Thank you, Chair. The recommendations, as I say, on page 62, it's recommended the Pension Fund Committee approve the resourcing and budgetary additions identified in paragraph 5.4 of the report. Can somebody please move? Okay, that's Phil. And the seconder? Yeah. All in favour? Well, that's carried. That's unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's very kind of you. Right, move on now to exclusion of the public. So could I have a... Could you...
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The recommendation is on page 75. Could somebody, that's to exclude the public. Could somebody please move? And the seconder? There we go. All in favour? Thank you. I shall stop the recording now. Thank you.